What is going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with Eric Romoff. It is week 6 of the NFL season, Eric. We made it so far. This way, we're a third of the way through the NFL season here. Plenty of storylines, obviously, going back the last couple of weeks. Did not end up having a show last week. Obviously, the Devontae Adams drama has occurred. We've had a firing in New York with Robert Saleh. No longer the head coach, who I don't think anybody would have pegged him to be the first coach fired here. We've seen obviously some rookie quarterbacks have some great seasons. We see one rookie quarterback this week, and Drake May expecting to make his starting debut. Spencer Rattler expecting to make his starting debut. So plenty of things to talk about. And of course, we got the Thursday night football game here tonight. Seattle Seahawks against the San Francisco 49ers. So we'll be going over all of that. We'll be answering your questions in the chat. For those of you who have them, we'll bring the chat up on screen here. Throw them in there. Eric and I will help you set your lineups, answer your betting and your DFS questions tonight, and we'll get everybody ready to go for week 6, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm going through PTSD as you run down the list of headline news items because it feels like it's getting faster and faster every single week, which is a weird feeling. So keeping track of all of it so that everyone watching out there can get a handle on the impact and the best moves and counter moves to make in response to it, and heading into what looks to be a pretty fun Thursday night football game. I feel like Thursday night football has actually been pretty solid so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously last week we had the Falcons and Buccaneers. I mean, that thing was obviously down to the wire, and then we had the Kirk Cousins just monster sort of welcome to Atlanta sort of game there. And now we have Seattle, San Francisco, obviously divisional matchup with the Western NFC West there. Seattle is a home team, 3.5-point underdogs in this one. Over under is 49 for this game as well. So, they are expecting sort of a higher scoring game here in this one. What are what's your overall expectations for what we're going to see tonight?
Yeah, I've got a pretty similar thought, right? Thus far, Seattle's defense has really struggled to keep points off of the board. They're allowing teams to score in bunches through 5 games this year. And San Francisco, while still a solid unit, certainly not the defensive excellence that we've come to know from them here in recent years. So I think there is a lot of opportunity to see this one run the score up. We're seeing Geno Smith not only throw the ball a ton, but throw the ball deep downfield. Yeah. This Ryan Grubb offense is very, very vertical. So I think we could have another explosive one on our hands.
Yeah, for sure. You also have inactive tonight for the 49ers. I just had it here. Well, one of their cornerbacks, I think I saw was inactive for today. Charvarius Ward is out tonight for the 49ers. So again, taking a hit in that secondary against one of the best passing offenses in football this year in Seattle, which I think is maybe a little bit surprising. Maybe not if you were expecting with the offensive coordinator change and coaching change there to see a different offense in Seattle, but they are throwing the ball downfield plenty. Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. I like the Tyler Lockett over yards tonight. It's 46.5, it's 46.5 receiving yards, I think is what it was. So I'm in on that play here tonight. Again, it should be pretty interesting. The 49 over under total there. Our guy MMA Play has the first cut on Metcalf or Marvin Harrison Jr. Where's your lean on this start sit tonight?
My lean is towards DK Metcalf. He had kind of a head scratcher of a game against Deontay Banks and the Giants secondary last week. Prior to that, 3 straight games of 100 yards. I think he, while he has plenty of upside, is a bit of a more stabilized floor, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. seems to be pretty boom bust in the early days of his career. And more of his booms tend to come in games where Trey McBride is not there. Right. We're expecting Trey McBride to be back again this week. So I'm going to go with DK out of these 2.
Yeah, I like it as well. I'm not really concerned about him having Walker and Mason already in his lineup. I get it's Thursday night football. You're a bit worried, but you're not going to not play Walker and Mason in your lineups there. I mean, they're two top tier running backs, right? Like, you kind of play your studs. You're not going to sit Metcalf just because you have Walker and Mason already in your lineup there. So yeah, I think you can confidently play Metcalf. We know the upsides there, a bit more consistency, and this matchup could be pretty interesting as well. From the 49ers side, obviously they made a kicking change with Jake Moody hurt this week. Do you think that is going to sort of impact how they run their offense today? Do you think you'll see them go for it more? Like, what's your expectations there?
Not in any sort of disproportionate way, right? If we're talking about like an in-game scenario where a
Sure.
kicker gets swapped out in a whatever second, third quarter, that's typically where you see them be a little bit more aggressive on third and fourth down, or tend to go for 2 points for the point after try. Now that we're talking about a guy that's had the ability to go through practice and really get himself game ready, I don't think that they would really change their stance about the kicking game too much.
Yeah. David in chat wants to know which Thursday props do we like here today. Obviously, Fantasy Alarm, we have plenty of betting content out there over on fantasyalarm.com, and we have game predictions. I did our underdog NFL article for us over at Fantasy Alarm, and listen, I mentioned already, I like the Tyler Lockett um, receiving yards tonight. Is currently set 45 and a half, kind of good depending where you're looking, 45 and a half, 46 and a half receiving yards. Went over that the last two games, gone over that. I think it's in 3 of the last 4 as well. He just kind of finds the soft spots in those defenses, and Geno Smith is targeting him, right? Defenses are worried about DK Metcalf. They're, looking to stop down Jackson Smith and Jigba and sort of the breakout season many are expecting him to have, and yet week in and week out, Tyler Lockett's just sort of that safety valve there for Geno Smith. So I like the over 45 and a half receiving yards for Tyler Lockett. And then I got maybe a little sideways with my second pick here. I went with Brock Purdy, longest rushing play of more than 8.5 yards today. Purdy's had an 11-yard or more rush in 4 of the 5 games that he has played this season. The one miss, he had a 7-yard longest rush against New England. You could also go with more than 12 and a half rushing yards if you want as well, because again, he's pretty much getting that in a single carry. And he's a guy that, though not considered like your mobile quarterbacks, he does run the football a little bit. He had 10 carries a couple of games ago, the yardage has been there for him. So he's not afraid to take off if the pressure gets there. And, teams are sitting back there and looking to defend, Brandon Ayuk and Kittle and Samuel and whatnot. And as they get spread out, we've seen Purdy run for the first downs here at times. So I kind of like the Brock Purdy over 8.5 longest rushing yard play today against Seattle. Some maybe your non-traditional props, but the Lockett 45 or 46.5 yards for me is one of my favorites of the day.
Yeah, definitely don't mind that at all. Honestly, I really like speculating in the Seattle receiving game, right? So for me, while probably JSN's is the sharpest of all of those lines, all 3 of them, I think their receiving totals are on the board. I like the longest receptions totals for
Sure.
each of them. They're all within about 1.5 yards, 2 yards of each other. Like I talked about a minute ago, with this Ryan Grubb offense, the stems on their route trees are so much further downfield to where any single route has the potential of being a 14, 16, 18, 20-yard reception, right? So they just have more bites at that apple. So I like speculating in that regard.
Tyler
If you really
Lockett is
want to,
plus 425 for first Seattle reception. It's kind of not bad, right?
yeah, that's
Little
kind of
4 to
interesting,
1
right?
on the first reception for the Seattle Seahawks.
The very first one. To your point, Tyler Lockett, who kind of finds that soft spot
Yeah,
in the defense and just
right.
makes his numbers available. I don't mind that at all. In turn, I like playing a lot of Geno Smith passing yards, ladders. Right now, his passing attempts line, depending on your book, is between 34 and 35 and a half. He's closer to like 40 pass attempts per game on
Yeah.
average. So I think there's some value there. And on the other side, I kind of like going under on Jordan Mason's rushing attempts. Yes, the job is really his to be had,
Yeah.
right? But we're seeing a bit of a trend on Thursday Night Football specifically. Running backs are getting a little bit less involved, or at least bell cow backs are splitting the work a little bit more. And also, if we're here talking about this vertical, fast pace, high scoring type of game script, Jordan Mason isn't really catching the ball a whole lot, right?
Right.
So, that takes him off the field. Even if he's on the field, maybe they are targeting him in this sort of scenario. So, um, DraftKings Sportsbook actually has under on 17.5 as plus money, plus 120. You can find this number at 18.5 out there. I
Yeah.
actually see a place that has it at 19.5. That's minus 120 as well. So, really like investing in this game script that we're laying out here, and I think that means a little bit less involvement for Jordan
Yeah,
Mason.
I like that. I like that call. Again, if we're thinking that they're going to be playing from behind or need to be looking to pass the ball more than run the football to stay competitive, then that's not a bad call there. Got a couple of trade questions in the chat.
Trade
Juan
time.
wants to know: trade Brees Hall and Tank Dell for Stephon Diggs. That feels like you're giving up a bit much there, Juan, for me.
Yes, that does feel like you're giving up a bit too much. You go on to say that you have Kenneth Walker, Jerome Ford, Josh Jacobs, and Kyron Williams. For wide receiver one, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, and Wandale Robinson. Yeah, this feels a bit lopsided, and it feels like a bit of an overreaction, right?
Right.
Obviously we are all reeling from Nico Collins heading to IR
Right.
with a hamstring injury. Despite heading to IR, he's still the league's receptions or receiving yards leader. He played like
Right.
a quarter in week 5. But apparently reporting out of Texans camp is that they're pretty optimistic that it's going to be the minimum stay. He'll miss the 4 games. They're just trying to be a bit conservative with him, and in turn should be back. And at that point, I mean, you're really kind of playing the revolving door between Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. It's going to be hard to get a good read as to whose week it will be to be the second banana.
Right.
It'll certainly be hard to reach the upside that you would like to get if you were going to be sending out Brees Hall.
Dell's obviously proven, at least last season, like he is capable of being like the go-to guy when needed to be, and we obviously know what Diggs can do here, but there's a very good chance that week in, week out, Dell and Diggs are kind of swapping off, and you just gave away Brees Hall for free almost. So I understand it. Like, you have a whole lot of running back depth. I don't think I'm ready to trade Brees Hall, though, of that group. I mean, you're losing Ford whenever Chubb comes back. Like, that's going to certainly cut into it. But, I mean, Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams are all legit RB1s. Like, you did yourself, the hero RB strategy worked well for you. I don't think that's the trade to make when it comes to moving for a wide receiver, though. Like, go get yourself, like, a Justin Jefferson or something. Like, go get yourself a top wide receiver.
Yeah,
if you're looking to move something like that. So,
if you're trying to spend that type of money, right, then go out and get one of these top,
because when Nico Collins comes back in 4 weeks, then you just traded Hall and Dell for wide receiver 2 and Diggs, right? Like, you're losing value there. Trade Kamara and Devonta for Jonathan Taylor and Malik Neighbors. I don't trade injured players. So, and Jonathan Taylor not practicing, that has me concerned. Neighbors with the concussion, not practicing, has me. If you're getting Kamara and Devonta Smith, sure, or Devonta Adams rather, or is it Devonta Smith or Devonta Adams? I guess is the question. If it's Devonta Smith, I think I'm definitely not trading those two away. I'd rather Kamara and whichever Devonta or Devontae it is there.
I think based on the spelling, that's Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Adams is VA.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally probably going to walk away from this one. It kind of feels like it's just trading for the sake of trading, right? Kind of 1 for 1 at each position. Guys that, on the high end of their range have pretty similar outcomes. Granted, Malik Neighbors has been a dynamo, but he's dealing with a concussion that seems to be lingering despite his attendance of Travis Scott concerts. Jonathan Taylor has the weirdly categorized minor high ankle sprain, which I've never heard listed in that way before. So, while the appeal of getting a guy like Neighbors is interesting, I don't think you want to eat that risk of taking on these injured guys.
Yeah, I agree. Again, if you're on the other side of that trade, sure, take Kamara and Devonta. But if you're not, no thanks. Chris playing on FanDuel, looking for a showdown lineup tonight. He's got Mason in his MVP. Well, we just talked, maybe looking down on Mason. Now, Mason could be a contrarian MVP play today if they get ahead and they just kind of run him out there and he has one of those big days today. But you kind of felt maybe the game flow would be more lenient towards the passing attack. So he's at Mason, then he's flexing Purdy, Ayuk, Metcalf, and Charbonnet. So even going with the backup running back and Charbonnet there for Seattle, maybe that's the game theory play, having to throw more to Charbonnet than using Kenneth Walker. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't mind playing Mason in DFS tonight. It seems like he's going to be fairly popular just because he's got such a stranglehold on that backfield. So you're not really creating a whole lot of leverage. And the way that this lineup comes together, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't tell a clear story, right? You're getting the bonus production from Mason, but you're also heavily involved in the San Francisco passing game with Purdy and Ayuk. So I don't mind this combination of players, but I would probably look to move Purdy into the MVP spot, or maybe look to just kind of take a more definitive stance in terms of you're either building for a heavy running game script or you're building for a heavy passing game script, because I feel like you're kind of straddling the line with this one.
Sure. Freddie wants to know, would you trade AJ Brown and Kenneth Walker, or AJ Brown for Kenneth Walker and Deebo Samuel?
In a vacuum, I probably would not. I think that AJ Brown is going to really set the world on fire when he returns as soon as this week.
Yeah.
He's got a fantastic schedule for the next 4 or 5 weeks or so. And Deebo Samuel, he's going to be kind of part of that revolving door for who the primary pass catching option is in San Francisco. Kenneth Walker has looked good in his limited return, but he already has an injury on his side of the docket for this year. Zach Charbonnet played very well in his stead, so maybe we see some work seeded his direction. Ultimately, two guys that I think have some kind of question marks lingering out there, however nitpicky they might be, whereas AJ Brown feels like a very sure thing in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. He's got another one where he has Samuel as his captain, flexing Metcalf, Walker, Myers, and Purdy. He's got a kicker in there. Obviously that one lends a little bit more to the passing game. I'm fine with that as well. Again, showdown slates, you got to kind of get a little different. The kicker, obviously, if you're thinking that they run into some, the 49ers to get into their side of the field, Seattle's drive stall out, Myers maybe kicking a couple. I like the over 1.5 field goals for Myers tonight. So I put that in my sleeper article for this week. So I'm good there.
Yeah. I certainly like this one more, especially in so much as having one of the San Francisco pass catchers as your MVP, right? Like generally speaking, we see Ayuk and Deebo kind of split the ownership on these showdown slates. So just planting your flag on not only is Deebo the one I want to roster, but the one that I'm getting the accelerator on is a nice way to create a bit of leverage.
Yep, I agree with you on that. Mojo says Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield for this week. Starting Barkley and Mason at the running back positions. So we'll start with the quarterbacks. Do we want Geno tonight or Mayfield against the Saints this week?
I'll go with Geno tonight.
Definitely the Saints, right? Is that right?
It is against the Saints this week. Yeah. We have the vaunted Mike Evans, Marshawn
Lattimore. I was going to say a Lattimore matchup.
Sequel once more. For me, I mean, like we said a couple times now, I think this game has the potential to really run up the score. Geno Smith throws the ball a ton, and for my money, has one of the best trios in all of the NFL in terms of his receiving talent. And San Francisco, they're certainly not incapable of returning serve and keeping their foot on the accelerator. So practically speaking, these guys are 2 spots apart in my ranking, but I'll lean towards Geno of those two.
The second part, he's got Barkley and Mason already in. Hard to do better than that. I have Dowell, Dobbins, and Bigsby on the bench. Which of the 3 would you put in the flex? Tank Bigsby season has been looking pretty good there. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins coming off the bye. I don't think Rico Dowell is the spot to go with this week, but it is a standard league. So of the 3 running backs on the bench, who's the flex?
So you're going touchdown only, ostensibly, or at least no love for the pass catchers.
Right.
That is it's a big part of Dowdle's game. He definitely can catch a few balls. I think I'll go Dobbins here of
Okay.
these three. I I swatted the hornet's nest by daring to cast doubt on the Tank Bigsby takeover. A lot of his production
Sure.
have come on huge plays or kind of outlier plays where like 5 offensive linemen are pushing him into the end zone. Yes, those happened and you have to count them, but they're very hard to replicate, right? So
Sure.
I think he's played well enough to earn more snaps. Maybe in those additional snaps, we'll see a more stable baseline of production out of him. But to bench viable options like Dobbins or Dowdle for Bigsby this week is probably a week or two
Yeah,
too
especially
early
Gus
for me.
Edwards not practicing this week. Again, not that Edwards was doing much anyways, but he was getting a couple of carries.
Yeah,
Dobbins coming out of the bye maybe feels a bit safer. What is that? I feel like I'm losing my spots here. What's the Chargers? Is it Denver? This
Chargers
week?
are playing Broncos. Yeah,
Broncos, yeah. So I mean that is a little bit of a tough spot, but the volume and the job workload is certainly Dobbins there. So
yeah.
Big Daddy Weirdo from our Twitch gang here wants to know Wan'Dale Robinson, Slayton Olave, Rashad White didn't practice today. Bucky Irvin or Tank Bigsby. It's got one to flex. I mean, listen, obviously Slayton had the big week last week. Wan'Dale's been super consistent. Olave's got the rookie quarterback now. Where are you going with the flex here?
Yeah, the type of questions you get in week 6 that you didn't think were going to be head scratchers heading into the season. Heading into the season, the clear choice would be Chris Olave. I think where we sit right now, the answer for me is still Chris Olave.
Okay.
You raise a fair point that Spencer Rattler coming in, injects a little bit of chaos. Rattler is doing the needful in his first press avail and saying, "My job is to get the ball to Chris Olave." So
Right.
hopefully he holds good on his word and pays off this call. If you want to go with a little bit of a safer call, kind of a higher floor player, it would be Wan'Dale Robinson,
Yeah.
right? Despite Malik Neighbors pretty much gobbling up all of the opportunity, Wan'Dale Robinson is still a top 10 guy in terms of targets in the
Yeah.
NFL, right? So
Crazy
that
amount of
floor is
targets.
nice and high for him.
And they don't really have like a tight end they throw it to, so they just kind of throw to Wan'Dale, right? And they
Yeah.
just like it gets those yardage. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good with either of those. Olave for the upside, and Wan'Dale for the floor. Taysom Hill or Ty Conklin. Taysom Hill hasn't practiced, at least that I saw this week. So you're probably going Ty Conklin there in a standard league, Mo. Obviously, unless things change, but even then, Taysom Hill week to week is impossible to trust. I guess they both have pretty low floors, but I don't know. Maybe the idea is thinking with Spencer Rattler, like they may lean more on Taysom Hill this week. What are your thoughts on that game theory?
Yeah. So as we sit right now, back-to-back DNPs
Yeah,
for Taysom Hill. So not looking great for his availability. That could all change tomorrow, but if he's out, you have a clear answer. If he's in, I would lean towards Taysom Hill, right? He's got a pretty well-established red zone role and then the potential upside of more involvement with the rookie quarterback out there, but it seems like he's on the wrong side of questionable where we sit on Thursday night.
good. Thoughts on Broncos defense? I like them. I picked them up. Again, Broncos defense has been really good, and they're at home again. I would continue to rock Denver's D. I dropped Dallas, for them. Again,
Mhm.
Dallas hasn't really shown me much. I try to be in leagues where you don't have to make those decisions with defenses and kickers anymore because they're just seems so random, week to
They
week.
are.
So, but the leagues that I am in, yeah, I went and tried to grab Denver where I could. They have some, now they have an even better matchup. With the Derek Carr, they have the Chargers here this week. Then they get the Saints, and they're back home against Carolina. I mean, that's a 3-game run. That's pretty favorable for Denver's D there. So, I like Denver this week, especially home versus the Chargers there. Another one, Denver D or Seattle D.
I would definitely go Denver's D
Yeah,
here. I mean, to your point, in trying to avoid leagues where you play defenses, a lot of times it comes down to defensive touchdowns are going to be what wins the day, and those are super hard to project. But I do think that we're going to see a lot of scoring in tonight's game. So I'll err on the side of what should be a lower scoring fare
yeah,
between Denver and the Chargers.
yep, I agree with you. And Next question we got here again, Chris. Samuel, Walker, JSN, Purdy, Kittle. Another variation. Again, you're using Kenneth Walker and JSN there. So, you're looking for probably a game where Seattle's playing from ahead to get the value out of Kenneth Walker running into the San Francisco defense feels a little tough. And then obviously, with that idea, Samuel as your captain, throwing a ton with Purdy and Kittle. So certainly a decent DFS showdown build if you want to go there. Burrow or Daniels? Burrow coming off of 5 touchdown passes last week, and then Jaden Daniels being Jaden Daniels in that matchup against Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Cincinnati has the Giants on the road this week. Where are we with the quarterback play?
Of these two, it's Jaden Daniels for me. Joe Burrow is coming off of a phenomenal game, but in order for him to reach these heights, he's kind of got to throw 4 or 5 touchdowns, right? Whereas Jaden Daniels can get to that type of production a variety of different ways and in a number of different game scripts. So I've got Jaden Daniels sitting as my QB3 this week. So pretty short list of guys that you could put him next to that I would start over him.
I would agree. I mean, the rushing upside alone, obviously brings up the floor for him. You get the rushing touchdown, and then it just takes away what we need him to do throwing the football. Obviously, took a step back. He didn't complete 95% of his passes last week. How dare he? So, but still, I just wish they had like another receiver, right? It's just Terry McLaurin, and then who knows who that Noah Brown or
Brown's
is the KS, right? Like they didn't really surround him with another receiver after they moved on from Dotson. So not that Dotson was doing much anything either, but
the fact that they were willing to trade him in division kind of tells you all you need to know about their evaluation.
And we're seeing exactly what he can't do, which is anything. No Brown, no Smith still couldn't catch a football.
Yeah. So to your point though, right? Like as we hear either confirmed with the case of Devonta Adams or rumored availability of wide receivers in the trade market, Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen. I heard DeAndre Hopkins' name kind of getting kicked around there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Washington looks at where they are in the standings and says, hey, we're competing a year or two ahead of schedule. Like, let's go out and try to support our young
we got a chance to win the division now. Like why not go make a move? And you remember, the offseason, you had all those tweets from Ayuk, like watching the Commanders practices. I wonder if hindsight they're wishing maybe they made a move there. We talked obviously, Courtland Sutton was a hot name during the offseason, so maybe maybe we see Washington go and make a move to surround Daniels with some more weaponry there. Tim needs 2 in a PPR: Mixon, Downs, Flowers, and McLaurin.
Well, we'll start Mixon if he plays. He made it back to practice today, so that was a nice development. After that, I've got McLaurin a spot ahead of Zay Flowers. Give me 2 spots ahead of Zay Flowers.
Okay.
So I'll go there. Josh Downs is interesting, but I believe he popped up with was it a toe injury?
Yeah, he didn't practice. And Richardson practiced in full, and I honestly just downgrade the entire Colts passing offense at this point with Anthony Richardson at court. Man hasn't completed more than 50% of his passes when he's been out there. I get they can't not go back to him, but doesn't their offense look better with Joe Flacco, right? As just a traditional looking offense. I get they have to develop him. They need him to be a better passer, but Flacco's done nothing to not start for them, right?
The crazy conversation, and I know we're veering away from Thursday Night Football, right? But you can make an argument that one of the better things you can do for his development is have him sit behind Joe Flacco for a season and see what NFL quarterbacking looks like, at scale. I mean, with Downs in particular, right? For all of Anthony Richardson's shortcomings, one of them is he just can't really seem to connect on passes into the parts of the field where Downs operates, right? It's either behind the line of scrimmage or 40 yards down.
No problem hitting Alex Pierce on the 60-yard screamer, but not at Joe Flacco last week. So, right? Flacco still has as big of an arm as anybody in the league. So will be interesting. Obviously, again, Richardson practicing full. I would imagine he's named the starter when he is cleared, but We'll see what the direction they end up going in there. But so for you, it's Mixon and McLaurin on that one, right?
That's right.
All right. This is the next one here. 2 of 3 non PPR: Metcalf, Higgins, and DeAndre Swift, who's had himself a couple of strong weeks.
That's an interesting one. I'll slot Metcalf in, especially in the standard format. Right, he's actually, of these three, he's got the shortest odds for an anytime touchdown. So you like the ability to get into the box for him. The next one's tricky. I'll go with DeAndre Swift. He's got a well established role in terms of his volume. He's going up against the Jaguars, who have been just hemorrhaging points to, I'll say, to running backs, but really to every position this year. Higgins, you're really kind of spinning the wheel, right? His matchup this week is phenomenal. He gets the aforementioned Deontay Banks matchup that everyone has been beating up except for DK Metcalf this year. But I feel like Higgins' production is far more difficult to project and pin down, right? He can certainly go off for 30 something. He could also catch 4 for 30 yards.
It helps when your quarterback's throwing 5 touchdowns, right? Like you're gonna
exactly.
you're gonna get a piece of the pie there. So that's fine. Again, I like what Swift's been doing. Obviously, it's a non PPR, but he's still getting you yardage, as a receiver. So you don't get the points for the catches, but the yards are there. So I'm good with it. Freddie, would you trade Amon-Ra St. Brown? Man, we're trading Amon-Ra St. Brown and Brian Thomas for Saquon. I have AJ Brown, Neighbors, London, Cup, Connor, Achane, and Dobbins. So you're looking for a running back, I'm guessing, because you're down Achane. I don't love trading both Amon-Ra and Brian Thomas. I mean, I feel like you're overpaying for Saquon Barkley there a little bit. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown was the 5th overall pick in leagues this year, and he's done nothing to really suggest he's not worth it. Like a 1-to-1 Amon-Ra for Saquon would make more sense especially if the guy's not requiring a running back to come back to you, but you have a lot of wide receiver depth as well. So I don't know. What do you think here? My gut reaction is it's too much to give up, but roster comps, maybe it works out.
Yeah, I'm with you that I think that this is a bit too rich. If you have that need or that desire to go out and roster Saquon, I think you can go Amon-Ra plus, but the plus isn't Brian Thomas, right?
No.
Brian Thomas is very much so on the come. We saw that huge game where he was the fastest ball carrier of week number 5 en route to a long touchdown. I think we're only just beginning with Brian Thomas, right? So if you want to go Amon-Ra plus, I would say it's like plus kind of like a fringe sort of back end of your roster kind of guy. Or reach into your plethora of receiving weapons and pair up 2 different guys to go out and get Saquon, right? Like if we're talking about,
or get something back with Saquon, that's kind of the offset a little bit of the Thomas 100%. Give. Because you're trading him off of a 5 for 122 and a touchdown, but he had 6 for 86 in the score the week before that. He's got 3 games now of over 85 yards receiving. The targets the last 3 weeks, 8, 9, and 9. So like everything is coming up with like Brian Thomas, first overall pick out of LSU. That's 6'4", 200 pounds and fast, becoming a legit stud in the NFL, as we've seen rookie wide receivers year after year, of late come into the league and just kind of like immediately dominate. Yeah, I feel like, end of season, you might be looking at what you gave up for that deal. Be like, oh man, that wasn't worth it. So Freddie, again, depends on your league. I think it's too much, but up to you there ultimately. Gino, Caleb, or Kirk this week for Lex here at quarterback position.
Ooh, this one's kind of tricky. I'm such a big fan of the direction that the arrow is pointing for Caleb Williams. He throws the ball a ton. He's getting that juicy Jaguar secondary. I'm a little concerned about their ability to keep that game competitive, right? The Bears defense is proving to be pretty stout.
Yeah, right now it's only a 1-point spread, but I kind of agree with you, there. Jacksonville, outside of last week, their offense hasn't been great, and they had the benefit of being home. Now they're traveling. It's also the London game, right? It's 9:30, so
it is. Yeah, I'm gonna I'm going to go Geno here. But again, three guys that are right next to each other in rankings. In the case of Kirk, he's not going to throw for 500 yards every week. He's certainly not going to do it against a Panthers
Carolina.
team that will struggle to get to like 20 points this week.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Geno play there. Mooney, Brian Thomas, Ayuk, Evans, Reed need to start 3 of that group. Strong options, obviously.
Tricky.
Yeah, I like Jaden Reed as one against Arizona this week. But you're the man on the wide receiver cornerback match report. What am I looking at here?
Yeah, so the question is how long can Marshawn Lattimore continue to have his best games against Mike Evans? Right.
Yeah.
It seems like he has his number, although his season long statistics would indicate that it's more of like kind of a neutral matchup. So I'm gonna go Ayuk and Evans here. And then I'll go Jaden Reed for the third one, right? In the case of Brian Thomas Jr., as we just finish gushing over him, he has a brutal matchup against Johnson of the Bears, one of the better cover corners in all of the NFL. So, in the event that Jacksonville is able to score at all, I think they're going to be looking away from Johnson's coverage. So that should lean them towards Christian Kirk, should lean them towards Gabe Davis, maybe even towards Evan Ingram if we get him back this week. But just a tough spot for Brian Thomas Jr., which is this is the context you should use wide receiver cornerback matchup for in a season long setting, right? They should be a tiebreaker, not the sole determining factor.
Yep. So which 3 did we go with there? Sorry.
I went with Ayuk, Evans, and Jaden Reed.
All right. Jay Smells needs a stud running back. What should I do or trade? Here's my team. All right. So
here we go.
We got a full roster here. He needs a stud running back. I'd say I see a stud running back already on your roster.
Congratulations. Problem solved.
And then after that, you definitely have. Pollard's a good RB2, man. You're down on Breece Hall. I understand it, but Breece Hall is a stud wide receiver. Tony Pollard is a good RB2. Bigsby's definitely fine. Jonathan Brooks will be coming back. So you're looking to trade a wide receiver, I guess. You don't need Stroud or Love. You don't need both Stroud and Love. So I would say this. The question you just said to us, put it out to your league. Post it in the message. Hey, I need a running back. These are the guys I have available. Who wants somebody, on my team here? Metcalf, Dell, Deontay Johnson, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. You should be able to pick 2 of those players on this board here and get yourself a good running back for sure. Somebody just lost Rashee Rice and probably needs a wide receiver, or something like that. So I can't really guide you specifically. What do you think, Eric, here?
Yeah, like we both said, you have a stud running back. His name is Breece Hall. He just hasn't quite gotten to the fantasy production that his skill set is capable of. I would definitely preach patience in that regard. Honestly, I feel like this team's kind of stacked. Like, I don't know if I'm rushing out there to make a deal with this type of roster. If I had to guess, Jay Smells, you might be sitting on the wrong side of 500, but near the top of your league in points scored. One of those kind of variance things that just happens. If you want to go trade, I would certainly suggest trying to trade Tank Dell. Everyone is going to inflate his value because of the Nico Collins departure to IR for 4 weeks, however it might be. I would also try to trade Tank Bigsby. Everyone is in love with this guy after he scores 2 huge touchdowns last week. Yes, he will get more work going forward, but it's not a surefire thing where he steps into an 80% opportunity share in this backfield. And that's how he's being viewed in the market. So I think you can take advantage of that if you want to go out. But honestly, this was my roster. I'd be very happy with my prospectus going forward.
Right. Like outside of just like selling off big pieces, you have to also find a trade partner, so is anybody going to be willing to give up a stud running back in this situation for the deal? So, it all depends on where you're at. I look at this right now. I'd be like, I don't know, maybe you like package up a couple of small pieces and see if like the James Conner owner is willing to move like James Conner or something like that. And then you go in and you have Breece Hall and James Conner, as your top 2 running backs. And like, that's good. That is a solid two groups there. Because maybe his struggles is like Chase Brown goes off week to week. Chase Brown could be the guy. Zach Moss is hurt. He's limited in practice. Like, they've been giving him more work.
Yeah.
Like, I think you wait another week and see what your roster does, and you might just find, like we said, you're good to go here, man. So
yeah, this looks like a classic roster that I find myself building a lot, where you anchor with one guy, and then
yeah,
you just kind of have a revolving door of RB2 options that can kind
yeah,
of slot in as needed,
yep,
or that might actually come on at different points throughout the season. So you're
agreed.
getting enough out of Rachaad White right now. Pollard is a solid RB2 option. In a couple of weeks, Jonathan Brooks is going to return, right? Maybe he steps into that role.
Yeah.
Maybe Tank Bigsby does get a 80% opportunity share, and starting in week 7 and going forward, you can start him as your RB2 with confidence, right?
If
So
what we're seeing out of Chuba Hubbard right now with Andy Dalton as quarterback is an indication of what we could get out of Jonathan Brooks in 3-4 weeks, as they ramp him up and get him involved and take over, like, you're gonna be fine, man. So I think you're looking pretty good there. And if you are sitting at less than 500, it's more of a reason to petition your league to be in a points league. I know head-to-head is fun for everybody, but head-to-head is the worst fantasy format that exists. Dobbins or Pickens in PPR here?
I will go with Dobbins, like we talked about earlier. He's got so much of that volume directed his way. Pickens has proven to be a bit boomer bust and is over there rattling some cages with his coaching staff.
Arthur Smith
in a
is rattling
circumstance,
cages is what he's doing, right? Like,
yeah, right. And we also don't have at least 100% clarity on who his quarterback is going to be this week. So
true.
just more questions circling around Pickens than Dobbins. So I'll err on the side of the safer.
Yeah. Pickens got the 7 targets last week, but his snap count dropped to 59% for no reason at all whatsoever. Coming off of a 7 for 113 game, Arthur Smith is like, I don't need you. That's fine.
Yeah.
Follow-up question here. Drop either or both of Keon Coleman and Trey Tucker to pick up Tajay Spears, Michael Wilson, Dontavian Wicks, or Jalen Polk. Christian Watson's back practicing in a limited fashion. When he does return, that's going to likely push Wicks back down to his wide receiver 4 role. I know many people around in New England are excited to see what Drake May can do, and maybe the value for Jalen Polk increases with not Jacoby Brissett back there, but I'm still a bit skeptical. You're asking to drop one of 2 wide receivers to either pick up a running back in Spears or a wide receiver in Wilson, I guess. If you need the running back depth, sure, Tajay Spears was okay. Michael Wilson's been a lot better of late, but what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm dropping either of these guys, at least based on these options, right? If you are destined to go out and target someone among these players, I certainly think that coming off of the big touchdown for Keon Coleman, or just coming off of the presumed exodus of Devontae Adams in Las Vegas, you can probably trade either of these guys for more than nothing, right? Maybe a 2-for-1 and create a little bit of roster room so you can go add the one of these guys that you favor. Of these 4, call me a New Englander, get out the chowder. I like speculating with Polk here, right?
Sure.
Certainly has the lowest floor of these 4 that you've put out here, but we could see, if nothing else, a world where Drake May comes in and at least looks in the direction of wide receivers, which Jacoby Brissett largely hasn't been.
Yeah.
So
Jalen Polk,
if May does that, Polk is on the short list of guys that could be getting those looks.
Yeah, listen, Jalen Polk was a toe tap away from a game-winning touchdown last week. So
yeah.
I definitely don't mind just a given the field, like you're saying, like the speculative ad. Jalen Polk could come out and be the wide receiver 1 in New England from this point forward. So
yeah,
don't hate that. We got sit one of Hubbard, Swift, Debo, Harrison, and Montgomery. Tough to sit one. Is it Swift?
I don't think it's Swift. So of this lot, I've got Marvin Harrison ranked the lowest.
Okay.
Some of this is me projecting that Jair Alexander should be returning this week. The other part of this is just the rampant inconsistency that we've seen out of Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. If you guys haven't caught on quite yet, I tend to look towards baseline when making these decisions, right? I
Sure.
want to find that median point that is easiest to project, and unfortunately for Marvin Harrison Jr., his is a little bit wobbly.
Yeah, definitely some boomer bust there. Yeah, I mean, listen, I was obviously struggling even really. I mean, some big names there, but Harrison certainly the lower floor, I think. Sneaks, we do go live Sunday at 11 a.m., so you can tune in.
Appreciate you.
You'll get there. We appreciate you subbing in. And you guys haven't already, hit that like, hit that share, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free to do, and it's a free way to support the work that we do here over at Fantasy Alarm. If you guys are interested, you see the scroll down at the bottom as well. You might as well just go into a little bit of sales pitch here. We do have the 7-day free trial. Sorry, Eric, or in your face there. FantasyAlarm.com/win, promo code Let's Go. 7-day free trial in your first month. When you use promo code Let's Go is $19.98 there. So check it out. Scan the QR code, FantasyAlarm.com/win. Promo code Let's Go. Get that 7-day free trial. Get access to all of our DFS and premium content for a week. Try us out, then get that first month for $19.98. Back to the questions. Flash Rida. Would you trade McLaurin and Braylon Allen for Olave? He's nervous that Olave could struggle with Spencer Rattler. Thoughts here? Would you be moving on from McLaurin and Allen for Olave here?
I don't mind this. I think it's fair to have some concerns about how Chris Olave will do with a somewhat unheralded rookie quarterback under center, right? However much he wants to promise that he's going to pepper him with targets, open question, right?
Yep.
McLaurin is certainly more than replacement level in terms of your return. And Braylon Allen he's got a little juice to his game. He's certainly getting more and more snaps. The questions that I would have are really twofold. One, if you're on the 2 side of this 2-for-1, does that leave you cutting someone? And if so, who? And do you roster Breece Hall? Because if you do, I feel like this is pretty much a slam dunk. You can go out and get your handcuff and a comparable replacement for Chris Olave.
Yeah, I agree. Again, depending on which side of the deal you're on there, could have a little bit to do. Nervous that Olave could struggle. I mean, yeah, I don't disagree.
I think that means he's on the side that Olave is going out, right?
Yeah.
He's the Olave owner.
Yeah. Drop Trey Tucker or Keon Coleman for Polk. Which one are we picking? Probably Tucker, right? Keep Keon Coleman with Josh Allen. I always lean to the side of the better quarterback. So,
that's precisely it. And Keon Coleman, he's been hit or miss through 5 games so far, but he's on the field a ton, right? It's him and Matt Collins that are out there on 2 wide receiver sets. So,
and I don't think Shakir didn't practice again, right? So
yeah. So if you're talented enough to be a first round draft pick, or at least that high of a draft pick, and you're on the field with a quarterback like Josh Allen a lot, good things tend to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So that's it, at least for now, for the questions. Again, we'll hang around for a couple more minutes. If you guys do have any start sits, trades, betting questions, pick 'em plays, whatever you got, throw them in the chat. Eric and I will hang around for a few more minutes to help you guys get ready for week 6. We did get news just a few minutes ago here, as I try to find where that tweet was. Who was it here? Ian Rappaport. Christian McCaffrey is targeting an early November return. So that means we're at least a few more weeks without Christian McCaffrey, but expecting an early November return. Now he's got the Achilles tendonitis in both legs, which is tough. And who knows if CMC how much he'll look like CMC when he does get on the field, but they're obviously encouraged, and we'll see what happens there. But if you have Christian McCaffrey, at least another 3 or 4 weeks away from him coming back, say you're a manager, would you be looking to make a trade for Christian McCaffrey? If you're in a spot where you could manage to stash him, or do you just worried overall about that situation?
The situation, the circumstance overall is troubling for sure. I have to think that with the way that they rely on Christian McCaffrey, with the way that they have compensated him, if and when they bring him back in early November or whenever that time may come, he's going to be healthy enough to perform at a requisite level, right? Like, I don't think they're going to take the risk of some sort of catastrophic injury or a re-injury by rushing him out there a little bit too soon. So You find yourself sitting at 4-1, 5-0. If you got a lot of depth at the position, you can kind of stomach another month of no production out of Christian McCaffrey. I wouldn't mind floating out a low ball offer. I would imagine the market is going to be pretty polarized. It's either going to
Yeah.
be CMC managers who took him 101 overall and is so happy to get him off of their roster
Right.
that they'll take 30 cents on the dollar.
Especially knowing it's 4 more weeks, right? Like now that there's sort of a set time frame, it kind of
Yeah,
they're looking if they're sitting at 500, they're like, man, 4 more weeks, no Chris McCaffrey. I
could
got
be
to
out
get
of it.
wins. Like they might be able to go and
Yeah.
be willing to move. So
Yeah. Or on the other side, you're going to catch sunk cost bias guy who's like, I invested so much. I've already waited for 6 weeks. What's
yeah.
3 more,
Yep. Agreed with you there. So again, the latest news coming out here: CMC expect to come back in early November. Is that the first week? Is that the second week? Is that Thanksgiving? Who knows? We'll find out obviously more as we get closer to that date. Again, guys, we appreciate you all tuning in. We'll be back live here Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Myself and Andrew Cooper. Make sure you check out the wide receiver cornerback matchup report that Eric puts out each and every week. What do we got? We got one more question here. What do we got, Eric?
Yeah, we got Matt K who responded to the live stream on Twitter, at least that
Okay.
post. He needs to sit or start 3 this week. He's got Debo Samuel, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So pretty loaded 4-pack there of wide receivers.
Yeah.
Any of them jump out as the one to potentially send to the pine?
I mean, I feel like DJ Moore is the guy just because I know you mentioned you've been liking what we've seen out of Caleb Williams a little bit later. Moore did have the good week last week, but there's still been some like inconsistencies there with him. I think I'd rather just trust Debo, Godwin, and Amon-Ra over Moore here. What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly how I've got it as well, right?
Sure.
For how bullish I am on the passing offense of the Bears,
Yeah.
a lot of that has to do with the Caleb Williams side because he has 3 guys to distribute the ball to that are all plus wide receivers. Not any given week is guaranteed to be DJ Moore's week. You look at these other options, obviously. Whenever it's not by or whenever he's healthy, you're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right.
Chris Godwin has been absolutely setting the world on fire, running out of the slot again. And with Debo Samuel, I'm trying to get a gauge of this one. I haven't exactly settled in on where I land. Despite the Seahawks running a fair amount of zone coverage, Trey Brown randomly shadowed last week. He shadowed Darius Slayton. He gave up like 93 yards and a score. If he shadows again, there's a good chance it's on Debo Samuel, and Debo Samuel could be lined up for another solid night. In addition to just the overall game environment being potent, so I'll send DJ Moore to the pine here, but very tough call.
And then last question of the night goes to Danny over on Twitch. Debo, Higgins, or Flowers? I'm guessing we need to pick one of that group here.
Yes, and if we do, it's Debo Samuel of those 3. We talked a little bit about the boom or bust nature of Higgins. Zay Flowers is coming off of at least a better trajectory of late, but another offense that doesn't throw to the wide receiver a whole lot, right?
True.
So with Debo, you have the target floor. You also have his involvement as a ball carrier to help raise that floor up.
Yep, love it. All right, everybody, we appreciate you all again tuning in. Good luck with week 6. We'll be back on